Welcome everyone. My name is Patrick Jost, and I am today joined by Mélanie from our team at Neurofeedback. And we're very excited to present recoveriX, which is a new way to restore movement. If you're here, that means that you have seen our newsletter or posts on social media. And thank you for joining. This is a very exciting day because this is a great tool and we want to show you all about it, answer all your questions. So first things first, there is a chat function. I think it's on the right of your screen. So please feel free to use it. You can communicate there with us. Please do ask all the questions. There is no silly question. Every question is highly appreciated. Any comments you might have, we'll try to answer as we go or at the end of this webinar. So with no further ado, I would like for you to welcome Mélanie here, and she's going to kick us off with what is this revolutionary tool. Mélanie, the floor is yours.
Okay, thank you. So welcome everybody. I'm really excited to be with Patrick because maybe we'll tell you more about later how recoveriX has arrived in Luxembourg, the story, but it's a great new tool to help people. So we have focused this title on stroke and brain injury, but in fact you will see it can help on many other diagnostic. So a little summary, I will introduce with some data and knowledge about the stroke and also other things as brain injury and multiple sclerosis and all the challenge that it means for people. And then what is recoveriX and what is this tool to restore movement? What do we speak about when we say restore movement? Is there something else or more that it can do? What are the limits or what are the pro, cons, etc., and how to get started if you're interested of that. So this is our team. So Patrick and myself are on the left, and Moisha and François that are actually busy working, are on the right of the screen. That you will meet soon. So first of all, to start, what are the numbers, the data about stroke? So I've had a look on general data in the world, in Europe, and specifically here in Luxembourg. It's not always easy to find a super precise number because sometimes they don't keep a precise track of it. But there is a lot of people that are suffering from stroke, and some of them they recover really good, and some of them they don't, and they still have years later some struggle. Can be language, memory, movement, etc. And that's where we focus on. For brain injury, the numbers are huge too. It's quite huge. But again, for Luxembourg, they just say they align with the European trends, so there's no precise number. And for multiple sclerosis, they estimated around 3,000. So that's the number I found when I was looking and working on that presentation. So it's quite a lot, even if sometimes you feel alone when you're suffering from it. You're not the only one, and there is resource and action to take to help in everyday life and recover from that.
Mélanie,
So
let me just jump in. When we're talking
yeah.
stroke, I think there's also one number that really stands out that I came across. That is the 4 stroke patients per day in Luxembourg on average.
Oh, you did
So,
find that. Cool.
yeah,
Okay.
so that is something, I mean, most people that are listening here probably know a lot about stroke, and but I just wanted to bring in this number and say it's huge, especially.
Yeah, 4 per day is huge.
Yeah, we're going to come back to that number a bit later.
Mm-hmm.
But I'll let you carry on. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. I didn't know that number. It's huge. Okay, so when there is a stroke or brain injury or multiple sclerosis, what happens then? What are the consequences of because the one we can see are the one where people they lost motor function or language. It's obvious for others around that someone has lost the ability he had before, but there is many more than that, and it's way more complicated, and it impacts so many different aspects of life that sometimes we don't think about when we're not concerned by it. So I think it's important to let people know, if there is some that are just interested in the subject, to like just think how heavy it is in everyday life. So there is of course this physical and motor impact with mobility issue, weakness, spasticity. There is this chronic fatigue. Sometimes there is pain that stays. There is also, because of that, it's hard to manage the activity of daily living, like to manage your household. To do things you were doing before is not possible, allowing the mowing the lawn and stuff like that. Also, mobility is huge because you need to take specific option in assistance. It's not, you can't plan all the time your travel like last minute. You need to take sometimes week in advance, contact the service with the airport, with the train, with taxi, etc. If you are in a wheelchair, for example. Also speech and communication. If you've lost the ability to find your vocabulary easier, it's hard to speak and communicate with people, but also to understand when they speak to you. And especially if you're tired, it's hard for your brain to manage that.
Yeah, let me jump in. I think there's also other things people don't think about too consciously. Is, for example, just the fact of swallowing.
Oh,
All of
yeah.
this is also linked, and yeah, I think it's the whole connection in this area, which makes it difficult. There you go.
Yeah, just eating. Mm. Yeah, okay, thank you. And then there is all this emotional and psychological impact also, because you realize you've lost function and you feel, I think, for what I hear from people, they always told me I'm not the one I was before. And that's really hard and challenging, but I can understand. Because you're not as independent, and it's kind of heavy to function with the help of someone else every day. You can feel isolation and lonely because you sometimes can't participate to all the activity you were doing before with friends or sports or outside, and so you lose contact with people. There is also the mental health struggle that comes with it, can give anxiety, a lot of stress, a lot of rumination, sadness, lack of or like, not a lack of motivation, but like your motivation decrease because of that. There is also then you're limited in hobbies and passion that you want to do. Sometimes if your muscle weakness doesn't allow you to do what you want.
Yeah,
And
like
also,
picking up the grandchildren, things like that.
yeah,
It's
yeah,
should be obvious and should be possible, but then it
it's the
becomes
everyday life.
a barrier. There you go.
All those the small acts of everyday life is hard, hugging people, etc. And also, yeah, unfortunately in health, mental health, physical health, there is stigma, and it's sometimes hard to find support or every resource we can, and it's tiring, so it's not easy. Then there is also a cognitive impact that is really important to know. The brain with stroke and brain injury and stuff like that as is being attacked or as damaged sometimes. So memory, attention, focus, like reasoning, problem solving, all the function, they're struggling. And so that's why you have language issue, and then it's all linked together, because you have a cognitive impact, then you can lose capacity of like language or motor function. Because of that, you see less people, you do less things, then your mental health is going low, etc., etc., etc. It's everything is linked together. It's not something that is apart. I should have put a line between them. There is also something really, really important. It's the professional and financial impacts that we don't think about. It's about the career. I've seen a really cute story a few weeks ago on on the social network. It was someone working in a restaurant as a chief, and he got a stroke. And the thing is, he was not able to stand for all the service to cook. So fortunately, everybody, they managed with an association to find funds to build in the kitchen of the restaurant a device that allow him to, it was kind of
To be
something
supported.
hanging from the ceiling, and he was just putting himself in that, and it was sliding from one area to another, and so he was able to cook as he was almost before. So that's good. It's cool, but not everybody can have that. So about career and accommodation, it's not always easy. Then because of that, if you lose your job, or if your job is not able to do accommodation, then there is a loss of income. So the financial precarity, especially if you're alone, not in a family or in a couple that can maybe with another salary help, it's really hard. And then there is also all the medical expense, care, and insurance costs, because you need a lot of different kind of intervention, therapy, specific medical device, maybe adapting the car, the chair, the bed. I don't know how much the insurance cover that in Luxembourg and in other area, but it costs. It's not something cheap, and I don't think it's always 100% cover. So it's important part of the struggle for people that has a stroke or something.
And maybe also another point is also what options are there. We're going to cover that a bit later in this webinar as well, because if you have good options, that is one thing, but if you are out of options, that is a very different scenario. So we're going to get back to that as well. I think it's also part of the challenge, because if you don't have the treatment that you require, then people might also travel to find solutions in other countries, try experimental things. We're really desperate. Also, things like that come into play, and this is where we're hoping to contribute in a good way.
Thank you. So, first of all, it's really important. We've looked at all the recommendations that exist, especially we've looked in the American and Canadian one. They did a guideline, a new one in 2000. Was this year. So I will show you later. It's a really long list, so I'm not gonna list them all, because it also depends on the degree, the severity of the stroke or multiple sclerosis or a brain injury that you had. So depends on that. There is different plan of treatment, but it's really important to look at what is recommended when something like a stroke happens. So there is key factor. It's super important if you want to recover and have the high chance after a stroke, especially and a brain injury, to act fast and keep an ongoing rehabilitation plan. So it's not advised to stop at a certain time, like 6 months later, and do nothing else. Then it's really important for the body and for the brain, for the recovery, to keep going out, keep have training to get better and train and improve. It's also super important that there is a good communication and coordination between all the actors that work with you. The doctor, the neurologist, the anesthesiologist, the speech therapist, they need to communicate and to speak together to build a strong treatment plan. So that's super important. And the interdisciplinary approach is really important too. If you just treat one point, then you say, okay, 3 weeks later, we do another one, then we do this muscle, then we try to help the language. It's too slow. It's not going to work as good as if you do everything together simultaneously. So that's super important. That's the 3 points you need to have for recovery. So this is the paper. Patrick, if you can paste the link if people want to read it.
Yes.
It's super interesting. They speak about a lot of different intervention. I will list some after that, and they have a guide inside with the recommendation level, if it's really recommended, less recommended, in an order of priority. And I also have like level, like classification level, like linked to scientific approach and foundation. Is the background, scientific background, is as a good methodology or not? Is there proof, scientific proof, or is it still in research, etc.? So it's really interesting. It's just a new one.
Yeah, they did a new one. They updated the old one. So it's the
Yeah,
2024 edition,
I
essentially.
think the last one was 9/17,
Mhm.
2017, something like that.
All right.
So
Well, we'll
it's
paste
really
the link
interesting.
in a bit. And yeah, there is a, in those recommendations, why did you continue, Melanie? I didn't want to interrupt, really.
Oh, sorry.
No, no,
I went too fast,
no, you
maybe.
go for it. No, no, you go for it. That's fine.
Okay. So this is kind of things they list. I've changed a little bit and put categories so it's easier to see, but they spoke about treadmill, something like treadmill exercise with weight to balance your body. They also spoke about virtual reality, exoskeletons with robot help, everything with aquatic therapy, musicotherapy, zootherapy, art therapy. There was a long list in it. It was really interesting. Um, and there are some that are more important than other for them in the classification. They also spoke about using like the brain practice mental and cognitive training, also strengthen the muscle, even the one that are impaired. They always say it's better to work with bilateral member. So if a person has lost the ability to move one arm and can move only the other one, then they need to move the other one, and they say someone needs to constraint induce the movement, so both does the same with a mirror, so they can see the brain can have he has the message of the muscle movement, and also they were speaking about electrical stimulation of the muscle directly, but also on the brain. They were speaking about different devices in it. We will present to you some of them later more in detail, because that's something we already do, but
Mhm.
not for specifically for multiple sclerosis or but for stroke and brain injury. So we'll show you that. So this is what, yeah, this is really important. Working on muscle, the body, working on mental health, cognitive practice training, working on rewiring the brain, stimulating the brain. It's multiple action.
So I think the key message here is there is a couple of things that need to be done, and they all need to happen more or less at the same time, ideally at the same time.
Hmm.
So as you said, don't go do one thing one week and then have a break and then do another week something else and then expect results. So I think really the beauty of this of this paper is that they really found out the best way, if only possible, is also just a recommendation. They are not saying, okay, this is the treatment, and go there and that's where you get all of this. But if you had to put it together by yourself, then you may want to check off all those different areas as good as possible in the most compressed time frame as possible. It's not
Hmm.
always easy, not always possible, but this is basically what the recommendation says. Many things and at the same time.
Yeah, they
So,
have a super paper on their website. Maybe I should have put a screen share. I think it's on the American Association. They have on their website that you can download. They have checklists. They have questions. Then they ask you questions, so they help you to understand where you are about in each like body movement,
what you're already
stiffness,
doing and what's lacking.
yeah, where you are, what you're doing, what you would need to do, because it differ from one person to another. So if you have someone that has a major stroke and is in a wheelchair, it's going to be difficult to say, go do yoga at home. Yeah, no, that's not maybe the first thing to do. It's good after once you've recovered, but not. Yeah, there is priority also order, and that's where the communication and coordination of the medical team comes in, because there is a lot of tool, and the best, what is your best option, which one do you need to put together to have the best outcome and recovery. But
I took a
there is a
note.
lot of
We'll
things.
share this with all the participants later. So we'll have the link for the
Yeah,
association and also this checklist. Yeah, we can share. We'll definitely share
yeah,
that
it's
after
a
the
it's a good
webinar.
one. It helps to structure a little bit. It's less overwhelming, because that can be overwhelming. So this is the recommendation they did, and there is I was talking about brain stimulation, rewiring, helping the brain to work better, and this is something we already do before starting to look at recoveriX and bringing this in Luxembourg. It's been how many years? I know Francois is somewhere here. I think it's
Yeah,
from 2013. May
somewhere around that.
Francois,
Yeah.
tell me if I'm wrong, but he is the one that has started to do what we call neurofeedback. So we use those tools. If you are interested in looking at what it is, it's not today's subject, but I can give you a little introduction at that. We use that every day. We have a clinic that's called Neurofeedback Luxembourg,
Yeah, and
and we
Francois has
do
just
EEG.
confirmed it is as well
Oh,
since 2013 that he started
okay, good.
uh, with
I got the number
neurofeedback.
right.
Yeah, nice.
Okay. So this is what we do every day with patients that are coming here, kids, adults, older people. We measure the EEG to look at the brain. So here you have two examples of like data we can analyze from the EEG. It's called quantitative EEG. So we see dysregulation in the electrical activity, and this gives us information about symptoms: depression, anxiety, sleep issue, autism, ADHD, everything you can think about. Then we do the treatment with neurofeedback. We help the brain to get out of this dysregulated zone and to get better. And we have a lot of tool to stimulate and help the body and the brain to work better, to have a faster and better outcome in your feedback. But if you're interested in it, we can speak about more in detail another day.
Mélanie, while we're on this slide, and for those that aren't so familiar with the things we see here on the screen, can you point? I mean, on the left, we have
Yeah,
those two graphs
yeah.
in color.
This,
So basically, this is a view from the top of the head, where the nose is the little pointer that we see on the north side of this round thing, and the ears, they are on the side, right?
yeah, exactly.
So, and then the different colors, they basically represent if something's like overactive or not active enough, this kind of thing.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay,
And
just
that's
to,
where we see the dysregulation. We look at what we call the brain waves. So that's what you see here on the screen, here on the computer. And from this, we can extract image like that and see, okay, for example, this person has too much, I don't know, I say something like beta brain waves. Oh, too fast beta brain waves, too much is a sign of anxiety. Oh, here it's blue. Oh, there is a lot of theta lacking. Is
hmm,
struggling to focus and to fall asleep. And, it's precise information we can get. So
yeah.
we have a lot of mental health people coming for that, a lot of depression and anxiety, and also PTSD. We had a presentation about PTSD, what we do with neurofeedback, how do we see that on the EEG, etc. So we presented that yesterday. It's a huge topic.
Hmm.
It's really interesting. So
Thank you for that. For those not so familiar with neurofeedback, which is basically something you do every day as a neuropsychologist. But
yeah,
on the other hand, you're also familiar with the classical interventions
yeah,
which are available in
yeah.
terms of stroke. Maybe we
That's
want to
what
go
mainly
through
they do.
those. Yeah.
Hmm.
So that is what is basically available on the market to our
Most
knowledge,
common.
but it will be interesting for those joining here that are may be affected or have someone in the family that's affected by a stroke. To complete the list, is there other therapies that you know of that you have tried? Is this the lot? Which ones have you tried? Which ones have eventually produced some benefits? Please use the chat. Feel free to help us out so that our presentation, which we will redo in a couple of while, also in German and in French, so we can improve our presentation, be more complete. You can use the chat for that. Mélanie, is there anything that you wanted to point out in these interventions?
Not specifically. It's the most common one. Medication, yeah, just a little knowledge. Medication, I was more focused on multiple sclerosis, the treatment for that. But in fact, with all the medical problems that comes with stroke or brain injury, I know that there is a lot of medical intervention that I don't know specifically of because it's not my job.
Your field. Yeah, it's not your
Yeah, it's
area of
not my field.
expertise.
I know everything. Oh, no, not everything. I'm not God, but I know a lot of things about the brain and how we've connected with the
Mm.
function. That's what neuropsychologist means. I know healthy brain and let's say non-healthy brain that have been damaged or that have a bad wiring inside when the neurons don't communicate well. We try to understand why and what are the consequences and what we can do about. So, and I do, yeah, neurofeedback all the days. I've joined Francois 5 or 6 years ago almost. I think in March it will be 6 years. So that's what we do. So that's what I know, and I'm happy to be a part of doing something else and differently with recoveriX.
Okay.
But you will see it works also with the EEG.
But before we move to a bit more recoveriX, here's a question from Caroline. She's asking, how much evidence is there in diagnosing mental illnesses using quantitative EEG?
Oh, that's a really good question. I don't have an amount of number. Maybe Francois knows better because he's the library rat that reads a lot.
So
That's a really good question. Thank you.
yeah, we get the answer from Francois right away. He works in the background
So on a
today.
diagnostic level, what I can tell is that QEEG is not used for diagnostic. Okay,
Mm.
it's something you use to see the symptoms. If someone comes with me and say, I have problems with attention, can you tell me if I have ADHD? It's not going to work. I can see your brain has attention difficulty, but I'm not the one saying you have ADHD. To have ADHD, you need to go to a specialist. You need to run some tests, check if your eyes are good, check if there is no epilepsy with a neurologist, go to a psychiatrist, then do a IQ test and a lot of intervention before everybody together say, yeah, okay, you have ADHD. But I'm not the one doing that.
Yeah, Francois is also contributing his answer here. I've put it also on the screen. So there are biomarkers, but not for diagnostics.
Yeah.
So there is that link isn't there in terms of evidence and diagnosis. But as Melanie's already explained, yeah, we see what we see on the screen, but we don't use it as a diagnosis.
If someone did, that's not
Yeah,
good.
then. So another question here from Noah. What is TDCS and RTMS?
Oh, yeah, good question. So that's electrical stimulation intervention they do. So it's not specific to stroke and brain injury. It's also used in mental health. For example, TDCS is with electricity. You have electrodes that you patch on the head, and RTMS is with, oh, I'm losing the English word now, is with, oh
Just say in
God,
French.
c'est avec des boucles magnétiques, en fait, ça ressemble à une espèce de loupe et ça fait du magnétisme. Et le but, c'est de target des zones pour très précises et normalement, c'est fait avec l'IRMF
Okay.
pour réguler. Voilà.
So advanced things to do with stimulation Maybe we can also forward a bit more information or links towards it at the end of the webinar. And if that's okay, I would suggest that we move on.
Yeah, I can put links, but TMS is mainly known. I said mainly known for resistant depression, when the depression doesn't respond to therapy and medication, and it's most of the time should be used with very precise tool, and in study it's done with MRI. They try to target a very precise area of the brain, and they try to, I would say, to say it easier, to break a pattern that is stuck in the brain. Okay, it's kind of like taping on it to stop it.
But from my experience, it is heavy stuff. You know, it's like shooting cannons at the little birds, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah.
It's really heavy
It's
stuff.
that's why it's not for every. That's why you don't access it easily. It's not the case with TDCS, that is very pain free. You don't feel it. There is electricity, but it's not like the electric chair. So this is also for depression. The well known. Please don't buy device on the internet without medical assistant, because I've seen people telling me, "Oh, I've found on Amazon a TDCS device." Please no, don't do that. Even if it's cheap or not cheap, please don't do that, because if you put the electrodes not in the right place, or if you stimulate too much or not enough, please don't do that.
All right. Okay. So we have a researcher about RTMS in our audience. So Lisa, if you want to speak to that, would be fine. But otherwise, I would suggest that we also move on to what we are mainly here for. I mean, there's many options for treatment out there, as we have seen, but we also wanted to contribute our 2 cents of what we think is out there and what can be done. So this is a new tool for recovery. It's called recoveriX, and in a few slides, I'd like to tell you what it does, because without making it too complex and too complicated, doing the easy way is usually very difficult, but let me try. So Mélanie, if you can advance the slides as we go. So
Yes, let's
basically,
go.
the recoveriX, what is it? People come to us, and we have set up a clinic similar to what you see on the screen, and people will do one thing after we put the cables and everything on them. So the lady here is already wearing this nice headset, and for those that joined early, have seen me putting it on earlier. So this is basically what we put on people's heads, and it has electrodes all over the place, and then it gets connected to our equipment. So this is one thing. And why do we need that? Well, we need that and to do what is called in technical terms motor imagery. Motor imagery is nothing else than if you tell a person, okay, as close your eyes or don't, but imagine the hand movement. Okay, and here we see a hand movement on the table, and that is something we ask our patients to do so that they can actually imagine in their minds the movement of the hand. The hand might not move, that is not the topic here, but the first step, the input, and this is also where we're going to pick up from the brain, because the imagination obviously happens in the brain, and we know in which area there should be some activity, a change also in what is called an ERD plot. And when there we have getting too technical here, getting ahead of myself, but the idea is when the machine can pick up on the person saying, okay, I'm imagining moving my right hand, then we have the trigger. And that trigger we're going to use to show people on the screen, that's why the virtual reality component comes in, that the hand or the arm is actually moving. So people might be affected by stroke and therefore not be able, because of paralysis, to move their own arm or their own leg. And we're going to do it for them in terms of virtual reality. Maybe you have seen those videos on YouTube where people, they have like two arms in front of them, and then they put like another one, and people tap on those on this arm until people actually assimilate that third arm as being their arm. So that is something where here the virtual reality is that extra arm that is there on the screen, and it's not your own arm, because your own arm might not be moving, but if the arm on the screen is moving, we're already one step ahead in getting your own arm to move. Now, there is a third part, and that is functional electrical stimulation. So, functional electrical stimulation is nothing else than, and I brought those with me, those little electrodes that we can peel off here, and we can put on people's arms. And through those electrodes connected to a little battery, so no risk whatsoever in terms of, well, there is an electrode, two electrodes basically placed on each arm, or on an arm and on the leg, as you can see on the picture. And as soon as as soon as the imagination is happening in the brain, well, steps 2 and 3 actually happen at the same time. So the feedback in terms of virtual reality, you can see it on the screen. The person sees it on the screen, is there. And well, the output through the electrical stimulation on the person's arm will actually move that person's arm, maybe for the first time in years. And that is actually a great combination. And if you think back of what all the recommendations from the Stroke Association said, that there's multiple things that need to be combined. Well, here you have 3 of those things already combined. It's not all what we do, but just to give you an introduction, a head start into, okay, how does recoveriX work? So we have a headset. We pick up on the people doing this exercise of, okay, imagine my left arm is lifting. Okay, we'll do this exercise again with my right arm. And yes, we do that a lot of times. Like with every training, if you go to a gym and you muscle your biceps, you don't just do 1 or 2 repetitions. People go every day and they do a lot of repetitions. They have a little break and they do more repetitions. And that is what makes the muscle grow big over time. And what we do, we tell people, you need to do this exercise of imagination, and then the rest will follow. What
So
follows is on the screen, and then also it happens on their own limbs, because we help them as long as they cannot do it themselves yet.
So the goal is to restore that pathway between the brain command and the movement that we want from the muscle,
Yes,
because that
absolutely.
is what is lacking. It's that they want the muscle to move, but it's not because the area has been damaged or um, yeah, they have been damaged by the stroke or the brain injury, and so the pathway is kind of broken. So that's
Mm.
what we want to put again together, like when the brain puts the commands to do the movement happen, either if it's from the patient's help or if it's the with the stimulation.
We see so many people that have seen physios and other functional and occupational therapy professionals to basically help with that limb that isn't really doing what it's supposed to do or what the patient wants it to do. But let's not forget, the stroke happened in the brain. So
Hmm.
we need to start repairing on the brain level what has happened. Of
Yeah.
course, in combination, not only, and that is also why you could not just say, oh, I'll do neurofeedback and then, my brain is rewired without
No,
doing
it's
anything else on your body. It's this combination again, as the Stroke Association, we learned from them, that you need to combine a couple of things. And this is what recoveriX does. Um, let's maybe move on a little bit so we can have a look in more detail. So, what is it? You have had a little bit of an introduction, but it's actually advanced brain computer interface. So, this is these electrodes that we put on the head, and also with all the software and the wiring and everything that comes together, where we can then see what is happening in the brain. And depending on what is happening in the brain, we can then help and we teach and have those pathways get restored. So it is for stroke patients, but it's also for patients with multiple sclerosis. There is a lot of research going on, and as the trials were going and as the studies were going, and then patients came in, you have to know that this recoveriX is now also something they haven't really invented that last year. So I think they're also back in 2016 that they started with that. So they have a lot of experience. It originates in Austria. It's a research company building a lot of material around brain-computer interface. And one of the products they came out with is recoveriX. And with this technology, there is a lot of things that we're more and more finding out. It goes in the area of Parkinson. It goes into other diseases where they see, oh, okay, we weren't really targeting patients with that, but now that we had patients come in with this disease, are we actually seeing they get some benefits of it as well? So also when people speech impairment and things like that, recoveriX targets those same areas which are necessary, and when they are restored and they work well again, well, then the output is there again. If it's speech, if it's movement in the limbs, so then something important maybe also to pick up on is that it can be useful many years after the event or after the initial diagnosis in the case of people living with MS. So very often, if you've had a stroke, well, it's been a year. Yeah, well, you have recovered to a certain degree. It was maybe not as bad for you as for someone else. But this is, typical or classical Western medicine probably stops there and says, we can't really do much more. Whereas here with recoveriX, we refuse to think that the brain cannot change. The brain can relearn function. We've seen people where areas of the brain were affected, where other areas of the brain took over those functions. There is documentation about that. And here we're basically helping the brain relearn that lost motor function. And as I said, not only in areas where we most expect it, as in the arm and in the limb, but also swallowing is something, speech is an area. And this is what recoveriX really does. And what you see on the bottom right side of the screen, that's the actual EEG. So this is what happens is the electrical activity of the brain called brain waves. So different electrodes are different strategically placed positions on the head of every person that comes in. We
Yeah.
can then monitor what is this brain doing, and with that we can put together an image of what's happening in the brain. With that image we can trigger the neurorehabilitation process, and we'll go
Hmm.
through it in a bit more detail on, I think, on the next
Yeah.
slides.
Just to add, Patrick, this
Mm-hmm.
is for people looking, this is what we call a 19 channel because there is 19 electrode and so 19 line. This is a complete cap. This is
Yeah,
what we use, for example, in neurofeedback.
something like
For
this, right?
recoveriX, it's focused really on the motor stripe, or I am wrong. So there is not as much electrode because it's not used for the same, but this is just to give an idea to people that have never seen what an EEG is like. So it's just a
Yes,
little difference
thanks
to
for
be
adding that.
precise.
Absolutely. So I've seen headsets which had almost 100 electrodes on the head. Depends also what is it you do. Is it research? Is it neurofeedback? Is it
Hmm.
recoveriX? What is it you're really targeting? So the headset will be different. And but let's leave it at that maybe for the moment. And I think we have also some input from life experience. So we've taken the liberty of filming how this is actually happening in our clinic when patients come in. And here,
Oh,
Mélanie, will show
yeah.
you. This is a patient basically sitting in front of the screen. You see the electrodes on the arm and the headset on the head. both arms fully cabled with those 2 electrodes on each arm. And after the person receives the command to lift the left or the right arm, the person's not actually helping the arm to lift. The person is just imagining the movement. And when we hear left, we have a second or two, as when we drive the car, reaction time, where we're like, huh? What? Which side? What is it I'm supposed to do? I'm exaggerating. Just takes, say, maybe a second. And while the person reflects on what is it I'm supposed to do, and then starts to imagine the movement, the hand or the arm isn't moving yet. And as soon as we pick up that signal, okay, now the person is really imagining that movement, then the 2 things happen. 1, on the screen, we will have the arm that goes up, and 2, the electrical activity, the electrical current through the electrodes. It's hard. It's a little bit like tickling. It's not really painful if they're well placed on the muscle. It's nothing to be afraid of. It is tiring over a session, because in one session, every patient does 240 repetitions of lifting the arm. So therefore, having imagined the arm movement as a starting point. And as soon as the arm comes up, at some point there is a command saying, relax, that's enough. So we only want people to lift the arm for about 4 or 5 seconds, depends on when they start. So every cycle is 8 seconds. You get an attention prompt, say, okay, watch out, you're going to get a command. And then you're going to be told left or
Mm-hmm.
right after 2 seconds. It takes another second or so to react. And as the person moves through the imagination process, the arm comes up. Some people say, oh, great, the arm moves. And then they're not concentrated anymore on the thought. Well, the arm drops, because that is how the system works. You kind of reward the brain for doing the right thing. And the more often the brain does the right thing, the more often it gets rewarded. Well, and in the end, it has relearned a pattern. This is what this is like. Think conditioning, think dog training. Whenever the dog does something approximately right, gets a treat. Over time, you will make it a bit harder and say, it's not when you sit wherever, but it's only when you sit next to me or you sit really on my foot, then you get the treat. And this, with the recoveriX, it's similar, where also the brain is learning. And as the brain is learning, it produces better results. And with that, it also gets the reward in a better way. So we try and keep it interesting also for the person, because sitting there repeating the movement, so and so often, the person needs to be able to stay engaged. So this is also where the role of the therapist comes in, give encouragement. There's breaks built in after so and so many repetitions, just, stand up and shake it off a little bit. This is part of what we do. And with that, you don't need anything really fancy or special. You don't need a prescription. You can come in and book those sessions with us. This is what we offer. So people can come in with a wheelchair. People can, if they can walk, we have a chair for them. We can adapt the height of the table. So everything is really thought of, that the training can happen in the really best of scenarios. So
Cool.
now
So
I think we had a little bit of an introduction what recoveriX
yeah,
is, trying to boil it down to the most essential, to the most simple steps and parts of what we do in recoveriX. So the 3
trying to
things.
simplify it.
Trying to simplify it. I hope we succeeded in that. So there was what the imagination part does. Then there was what you see on the screen. So there's movement as a reward for what your brain has just been doing, and the electrical part where the arm is actually moving up whenever
Yeah, you
you
don't have the
lift.
sound here, but there is a verbal cue that say left or right, and so the people is imagining the good movement from the good hand, and once he does that, the virtual avatar moves and he got the stimulation here, and it's the stimulation that make his arm move, but you can hear it. It makes a little noise.
Thank you, Melanie. Yeah, that's a very good compliment. Now that you've seen an introduction to what recoveriX is, I have to say recoveriX is even more than that, because this is, to our knowledge, the only system to respect and combine what the International Stroke Association recommends. So there's actually 7 training approaches in the system, not only the 3 you can see from the arrows which are on the screen here. That is the ones we talked about. So the motor imagery bottom left is already been discussed. The task-based training is also something we've seen on the slide Melanie had put together for us from the Stroke Association, which is that we tell people something very specific that they should do. You know, it's not just, oh, move your arms, you know, like up and down all the time. No, it's very specific. Now it's the left arm, and now it's the right leg, you know, and now it's the right leg again, and maybe a third time, and then the left arm. If it's arm and leg therapy,
So,
that's obviously different if it's MS or if it's stroke patients that come and see us. So the
and
task-based
sometimes
training.
it's catching a ball, trying to take away a rat. Like it's this very precise task, I think.
Yeah, well, this is a part of, you have seen the cheese on the screen. So basically make it a bit interesting and say, okay, you don't want the rat to get to the cheese, so you're going to shoo the animal away.
Yeah,
That is
yeah, there is the
exactly.
cheese,
There's a
and
cheese
you
in the
need
middle,
to
and
push.
there's a little rodent coming in, and then as the hand moves up, it gets scared and it runs away.
And sometimes it's a ball. There's
Yes,
different
there's
tasks.
different animations. We also have people playing the drums, you know. So with the one arm they play, and then with the foot they do the other movement. Then the virtual reality, you have seen the screen, and then the functional electrical stimulation. Those are those little electrodes placed on people's limbs. Now, what is interesting in here is the mirror neuron training. That also is some people pick up a sport, say skiing, snowboarding, playing tennis, from watching someone else do it. What happens? Well, your brain is going to reflect on what it sees. Person's brain is going to mirror, is going to imitate. That's what kids do, right? They learn from imitating, from doing as another person does. And with that, there's real learning happening. And this is also built in here in the recoveriX, because what you see on the screen, the arm that moves up, this is something that will help build those patterns in the brain for your own arm to move up when the person is no longer in front of the screen, but you know, in their everyday life. Then that same movement that's been seen on the screen, observed on the screen, is then integrated into their own movements. And now we have the bilateral training is also very important, because people that are affected, say, on the right hand, now they've kind of learned that the right hand is no good. They can't use it anymore. They don't integrate the right hand in their everyday life anymore. So they've learned to do everything with the left hand, and that's really not helpful. So what we are doing here is, because we do the movement left and right and right and left and in a random order, so it's not always left, right, but what we do is we actively reintegrate that affected limb. The bariatric limb is pushed to be used again. And that is something what our patients also tell us outside of the recovery sessions. They notice that in everyday situations, they are more and more likely and using the arm that before they kind of excluded from their motor functions in everyday life. They are including this limb again more and more, thanks to the training they have received. And last but not least, constraint induced movement training. I think I went ahead of myself here by actually already explaining
Yeah,
here
it's linked
bilateral
together.
training and constraint induced movement training was a bit of the same thing. So that here actually this is the arm which is affected, which might be paralyzed, that it actually gets not forced, but yeah, really gets invited to be used again.
with the stimulation.
Yes, with the stimulation. And then the bilateral training, put that in perspective, is like, okay, if you only train one arm to become good, well, what's the other arm going to become? And therefore, it's important to train both arms. And then the constraint induced movement training is to really not forget the arm that is affected, so that it can get used again in everyday life more and more. Yeah, I think this covers in a way what we do at recoveriX. We have
We
seven
forgot
different.
something important, Patrick,
Yes.
just to say in one sentence. Why does it use motor imagery and not physical movement therapy?
Mhm.
First of all, because yeah, there is one limb that can be affected and can't move, and for the brain, doing a movement and imagining it is activating the same neuron path. It's for because with these mirror neurons, for him, it's the same.
That's
If I
right.
imagine myself picking up a glass of water, and if I do it, if you look in an MRI and in an EG, it's the same pattern.
Yeah, this
So
is
that's
very
why it
interesting.
works.
Thank you for contributing that. And actually, research has shown a lot of things in this area. So it also has a lot to do with mental health, where people get told, just imagine already being at a different stage in your life, even though
Hmm.
you're not there yet. But if you can imagine it, well, with what you just explained, Melanie, I think people get the idea that it can actually become a reality. So there's nothing spooky about it, but this is solid
Yeah.
research behind it. So this is what recoveriX does in a nutshell. 7 standard training approaches. So these are the 7 things that the International Stroke Association is calling for. Combine them as good as possible in the shortest time frame possible, and with that, focus on various areas, not just the muscle or just the brain, or So this is what
Mm.
recoveriX does, and to give you an idea, doing recoveriX sessions with us means coming 25 times for say an hour, and that is over the course of 8-9 weeks. Then it's done. You can do 3 or more sessions per week. You should do around about 3 at the minimum, so that you have this repetitive pattern, and
Yeah.
stimulation doesn't decrease over time, that you come and train with us. So this is just to give you a
Repetition
rough
is,
idea.
sorry,
Yeah.
repetition is really important for the brain when you want to learn something. It's really, or reestablish, recover for something. It's really, really important. So you learn the pattern, gets used to it. In the beginning, it's new. He doesn't know how to do. It's hard. It can be you're tired,
Mm.
and with each session gets easier, the brain gets better, and the result at the end, what we want to achieve with that, and it's the same with neurofeedback, is that the brain is able to do it himself. He has lost this ability. He doesn't know how to redo it. So we are jumping in to help him redo that and rebuild his pathway, his neuronal pathway.
Thank you, Melanie, for giving us these details. And Francois is also just contributing that, well, if you do the math, 25 sessions and 240 repetitions, then you have done 6,000 repetitions. And that is as much as a child needs to learn walking. So
Yeah, true.
if the child needs time to learn walking, we also need to give it time to relearn. And on the other hand, it is only 2 months of time investment, an hour every second or every third day. And that
Hmm.
is all it takes to get significant improvement. And I think this is the next part of our presentation, where we're going to
Yeah.
move into what success can actually look like. So, what we do is we do assessments upfront before people start the training. And then over time, we also do midterm assessments, and then obviously final assessment towards the end. So, Melanie, would you show us what types of assessments we have there? I can move into the
Yeah,
first one.
yeah. You want them all, or do you want
No,
me
just
to
go
do
one
ones
by
after
one.
another?
I think
Okay.
we're going to have a first look at this one.
This is not entirety. We pick up a
Yeah,
few one of those. Yeah.
you've put a few one together here. So the timed up and go is the time it takes a person to get up, walk towards a cone which is placed at 2-3 meters away, go around the cone and come back, sit back down again. So this is something that takes this is an average. So 40 plus seconds for a given distance. That's what it took a patient to do before starting recoveriX. After um, 5 sessions, after 10 sessions, after 15 sessions, after 20, and after
And at the
25
end.
sessions. And towards the end, we are a little bit faster, if not significantly faster. So I let you judge by yourself. So from 42 seconds, we're down to below 27 seconds. So that's almost doubling, in speed. And you can also see from the videos, we'll share those with you, where people get up, they're really sick. They get up, they are patients when they start. Now, at the end, they are people getting up, they have a very different attitude. The way they get up is also, I think it also has to do with the mental state of where people are at, seeing that they can do so much more again, that they want to get up, that they can get up. And this is what this first test usually shows. The graph is slightly different from person to person, but there is significant improvement there. Let's have a look at another one. All right, Mélanie, you chose for us a 6-minute walk test. So this is something where we ask people to just walk up and down the corridor, and then basically we measure how much ground they could cover. So here, 39 meters is something a person could cover before doing the recoveriX, and now over time this increases, and you can tell after 25 sessions there is more than 100 meters are being covered in the same time. So from there again, we have this time doubled. Um, so we have more than doubled the distance that people can cover after the 25 sessions that they did the recoveriX. All right. And here is the last one. It's a 10-meter walk test. That's also an interesting one. We tell people, just get up, just walk up to a specific point, and then we measure the time. And here we have people, they were using up to 9 seconds to do this 10-meter walk test. It's not a big distance, and it's maybe also not very hard. But if you can tell that they could do they could do the 10-meter walk test in 6 seconds, it's also significant increase. There's a little difference between the green and the black line here. So the first one is basically a standard pace. We just tell people, just do this, just walk up and down your regular kind of comfortable way of walking. Whereas the black line is when you tell people, do your fastest, how fast can you actually do it? And then obviously, they go a bit faster from the start, but they can achieve even better results after the 25 sessions. Yes, so we have a bit of patient backgrounds for you. Those are also videos that are on YouTube. You can find many more videos over the next coming weeks when we will pop YouTube channel even more. But we wanted to show you 2 case studies of people that have had there's a stroke, and there's also a person that has suffering from MS. And I think we're just going to play them. The sound is not coming through, but they are in German anyway, so the subtitles are in English. Let's just have a look at them.
Yeah, you will just miss the music, but you can read the text. If it goes too fast, let us know in the comment, and I will pause. Patrick, let me know if I need to
Yeah,
pause.
that's fine.
Okay, let me first make it big for you. Up. so you can actually see well.
I will hide our
Okay, so this is,
pictures.
and that was not able. And I have a second one. Let me put it bigger for you. So this one is a man that came 17 years after his diagnosis of multiple sclerosis, and this case is, wow, it's amazing. Oh, too fast, sorry, my bad, wrong button. Oh, okay, I think I've lost the
Present.
sound,
There
Patrick.
we
Oh
are.
no, here you go.
I
Okay.
know when I hide your picture, somehow the sound goes away as
Oh, that's
well.
good. Okay, good.
So we hope that you've enjoyed those two videos, which I think are very encouraging and showing that there is hope and that things can actually change and move in the right direction. So there will be more testimonials on YouTube, and this was also a good opportunity to show the timed up and go test that we mentioned earlier. In the second video, a person just getting up, going around the cone, sitting back down. Worked a lot better in the second attempt, which was after the 25 recoveriX sessions. All right, let's move maybe to the next
Yeah,
part, which maybe you want to cover, Melanie.
I can cover that. So recoveriX is focusing on the brain and restoring pathway to restore motor function. That's its first one purpose. But by training the brain to have a better pathway has also good impact on other everyday life aspect and also function. And that's what is amazing with the brain, because when you get one area better and you fine tune it or you build it better, then it works better. But as the brain has connection all over other part, it's always communicating and having connectivity everywhere. When that part gets better, then this part gets better, then this part can communicate better, and so on. It's a positive loop that happen. So there is a lot of physical and motor improvement that are reported by recoveriX training. So there is a decrease in spasticity, tremor, and also all the help usage like wheelchair, canes, rollator. And there is an increase in fine and gross motor skill. You can stand up faster, you have more strength, you walk faster, you can cover more distance. You don't have that much tension in your limb, you feel more relaxed, so it's easier to perform the movement. The temperature, tingling sensation that sometimes people report in their limb increase. The temperature increase, but the tingling sensation when you have lost your ability to feel something is increasing, so you can get sense again when you touch your skin. There's also an emotional and psychological improvement, because if you have a better motor function and you can do things faster with more motivation, you feel more happy, you have more energy, you're more alive, feel more alive, your mood is better, you laugh more because you feel you're getting a touch on your old self again. Then also there is a better cognition and language. People can do more tasks, can understand more rules, can stay focused longer, they have more energy, they can follow in conversation or speak more and better than before. There is also a reduced pain that has been reported a lot, and more confidence. You're less afraid of tripping because you have more strength muscle, and also better sleep, falling asleep faster. You feel sensation in your body and in the part that were numb before, and the temperature again. You have more sensitivity in the face. That's what Patrick was talking about with swallowing and all the expression, facial expression. You have also better bladder control. That's really important. There is also a day-to-day life improvement. We were speaking about the difficulty in the beginning. You can perform your activity, you can do more stuff and faster and also safely, because if your arms is always like with a tremor like that, to drink a glass of water or to cut something can be dangerous sometimes. So you can hold your glass and cups more steadily, you spill less, you remember things better, you have a better sense of organization, planification, you go to your appointment, you don't forget to do tasks or personal hygiene tasks, etc. You need less help from caregiver for you every day. You want to do more activity because now you can also. That's super important. Sometimes you want to try also new things. You're more interested in it. You have a better balance and you're able to stand and walk, because sometimes people can't even stand on their own. They need help. You can take the taxi alone. You can go in public transport. You can drive your car again and get out of the car also independently, because you have more strength, so you can get up. That's one
That's a
part
lot,
of yeah, it's already a lot and this is what is the most important, because when we show all the graph with the meter test and the run fast and etc., this is also interesting. It's like, okay, it showed that it gets better, but what about everyday life? Because this is the most important one, and I'm now going on a more personal level. When I studied neuropsychology, there was always speaking about rehabilitation, and there was always showing us virtual games on computer, like where people were putting balls in basket or doing cocktails on the computer, and I was like, that's great, but if they can prepare more cocktails, what does it, like in the everyday life, how does that transfer in the task in everyday life? Because I think people, if you have a stroke, you don't care about putting more balls in the basketballs in some baskets. You want to have more independence. You want to be able to play with your children again. You want to, do all this task. And this is always the thing. Like I was like, yeah, no, there's no way these games you're doing sometimes like once a week is going to help someone to have a better motor function. That's the thing. So this is way more practical because it targets the area that is concerned. It's the brain, and it's the thing that is super important because the brain has suffered, has lost in function. So why don't we train it to get better? Because
Yes.
it has been impacted. And so I'm like, yeah, this is missing. This is more practical, more logical to add that. And then that's why there is so many impact in the everyday life. And that's what matters. It's not the game. It's not the beating the time. It's then, yeah, you've got better. We see that on the test, but what's happening in your everyday life? And then people can report so many different various
Yes.
improvements. And that's really, really cool for me.
This is
That's
also,
where you help.
yes, thank you for contributing this, Melanie. And I think this is also a big motivation for the team here and also for the many
Mm,
applicants that come to us and say, "Ah, can I intern with you? Can I, work with you?" Because
mm,
what we do differently is that we don't just perform a test to find out, oh, yeah, it's bad, and then that's it. But what we could do is, yes, we can have a first assessment and say, how bad is it? But from there, we can improve things. We can reduce cognitive
mm,
decline. We can even in the case of MS, where it is just you need to take more and more drugs, and it's going to become more and more painful. Where here we can really go the other way. We can make people walk again. We can help people be with less pain compared to before. And this is really beautiful that we can
mm.
have such significant
Yeah.
positive change in people's lives. And yes, we'll do an assessment towards the end just for everyone to really see the positive change. Because, when you're not sick, you don't notice it. It's just when you are sick, then people complain about it and say, oh, yeah, my nose is running, or I can't do this activity
Hmm.
anymore because of such and such. But all of a sudden, when things become better, people get very quickly used to it. And it's like, yeah, it's normal and I can move again.
Mm.
Whereas it wasn't always the case. And that is what we also want people to see so
Yeah.
that they can also, yeah, benefit, get the full benefit of the recovery from working with us.
Mm.
And maybe we also
Yeah.
wanted to move to one more area, which is the inclusion and exclusion criteria,
Yeah.
because I think it's important for people to understand who can benefit from this. Is it really for everyone, or is there a couple of things we need to
Yeah.
pay attention to?
Yeah.
So
Thank you,
let's
Patrick.
let's move to the next slide. Maybe I'll cover the inclusion
Yeah.
criteria.
Let's go.
So here we obviously need for people to understand the task that we're giving them. So if we tell them you need to focus on your arm, they
And
need to be
imagine.
able to do this imagination, and therefore it's necessary to have a stable neurological condition, and also to understand what's going on. That is, if that is the case, then the key factor is also motivation. So people really need to be willing to participate. We'll give them some paperwork. It's called informed consent and the therapy agreement. It's pretty straightforward. And they need to be able to commit to come in at least 3 times a week. As I was saying, repetition is important. People coming from far away, they can also benefit from more intensive sessions. Doing, 10 sessions a week is something that we can accommodate, and
Mm.
therefore the training goes much faster. Not always possible. Not everyone can sustain such a high pace. It's also not what we call for. All we want is 3 times a week. And with
Mm.
3 times a week, it's the time to, well, to put on this little cap, get a little bit of gel that can be easily removed after the treatment, and do the exercise. That is already what we're asking for. We have a slide with things that aren't so good. So there's what we call exclusion criteria. We list them here. Things that can be an exclusion criteria is, for example, implanted medical devices, mostly when something like, well, that's more the second point here, implanted metallic fragments in the upper extremities, or if there was something in the head. Because we measure electrical activity, we also have an influence on people's motor cortex. So it's important that that can work without what's it called? Yeah, there should be no interference in this.
Mm. Because of the stimulation you do on the muscle. Yeah.
Yes. So we don't do any stimulation on the head. We only do stimulation on the lower or the upper limbs. So there is a bit of a list. If any of those was current, do speak to us about it. Those are, as in all medical environments, things that you want to have a talk about it and then check, is it 100% exclusion? Is it something you can work around? So that those are listed here. Um, any questions? Again, do use the chat to speak to us about it or get in touch with us. There is a website where there is information about recoveriX, how it works. There is studies out there that have been done. What they say, there's different languages, so the website is quite informative. But again, if anything was missing, you don't understand because it was too technical, please do reach out to us, because this is what we like to do. We like to make sure people know exactly what they're getting into. And yeah, Melanie, what else do we have? Yes,
Then
the
it's your
financial
part.
part. Well, the financial part, we want to cover that as well. So we do that in two, there's two parts. So the first thing is, before we start the actual training, we will do a couple of things together with the people that are interested. This is something we do as a bundle. So we have a first consultation where we assess inclusion, exclusion criteria, where we answer any remaining questions, where it's a case taking, so we know what happened to the person. We'll also ask that people do a cognitive test at home. So this is easily done on their computer as good as they can. There's absolutely no need to be good at everything. You know, it's just as what you can do. You can answer the questionnaires. You can do the cognitive games that we suggest. And what number 3 on the list is a brain map recording session. So this is,
That's the QEEG we were talking about before,
yes,
the
thank you.
picture.
The picture exactly, with the nose and the ears and the different colors on the head. So we get in a better understanding of what is really reality. What does life look like for the person we have in front of us, other than from what we talk about, but also how the brain functions for that person. Then we will also show you our premises so that everything is a known factor. We will do some physical assessment, which mainly consists of, say, moving the upper extremities in a certain way, moving blocks from one side to the other, putting little pins in little holes. A little bit annoying, I give you that. But on the other hand, if you can see your progress over time, then that can also help the motivation factor. That's why we do them up front. And then we'll do a first recoveriX training session. So that is where we'll put the real deal, this little headset on people's head. We'll wire everything up, connect everything, and what you've seen on the screen earlier with the little rodent that gets shooed away when the cheese is in the middle, that is the game we'll basically play. So it takes an hour, and with that, people have a very first approach to, oh, what does this feel like? So we have clients tell us, oh, it was amazing because I've never slept just as well for a long time in my life. Because, yes, the brain is actually being put to the task, and this is tiring. And with that, well, call it a side effect, but it's also something that can be quite enjoyable for to have a good night's sleep. So this is part 1. which Melanie, if you could press a few
Yeah,
buttons, exactly costs 695 euros, but we have a special promotion at the moment, so you can get this for 495, and then you can decide if you want to continue and move on to the second part, or if for whatever reason you decide that was very nice, but that's not for me, then there's no other obligation, no commitment for you. If you move on to part two because you're convinced that this could actually be a good solution for what you need, then what we'll do the other 24 recoveriX training sessions. Those will be 3 times a week, so and around about 8 weeks. We will also do 2 neurofeedback sessions, which is a little bit of different technology where there's no functional stimulation, but which is also something that helps the motivation, people that have issues with concentrating for other reasons. This is
it
where we
helps
can
reboost the brain before your recovery session. It's really nice.
exactly. So this is something will we put in as well. And after this, after those 26 sessions, we have come to say the end of the recoveriX training, and we'll do cognitive testing, the physical assessment in house, and also do a new brain map, so that we have all the measurements that we
The
can then
first
put together
and
and say
last.
before and after, and put this out in front. By then, I think a lot of improvements in everyday life should have become very visible. So we also provide a checklist of what you can expect. Melanie has gone through them with you earlier, but we can send you that list as well. And we give it to every patient so that as they go in everyday life, it's just a bit like journaling where they're like, oh yeah, this has become better. Oh yeah, this is, I notice, and so on. So they can keep a track and bring it with them when they come for the next session. And we'll do a debrief session where we talk about all of this. And then I think the magic has already happened. The 6,000 repetitions have been gone through. And this comes also at a price. And for that, we also have an offer at the moment. So it's usually priced. Melanie, can you bring this onto
Yeah,
the screen? Yes. So we are in the region of 7,000 euros. And this is at the moment also we run a promotion, which is roughly half price. You can pay it in one go, or you can choose to do that over 3 payments, whatever suits you better. So those are possibilities. That's where we stand today. And everything happens at Silver Square. I think that is the next
yeah.
slide, where we are with the neurofeedback, and which is something that
Oops, sorry.
that's all right.
I
Yes, we
clicked
have.
on it too fast.
Maybe Melanie, you want to take over from this point? You
I can conclude, yeah, this is just to show you where we are located. So it's not in a medical clinic or what people are used to see. It's where we have also our neurofeedback office, and people are always surprised because this area is really calm. It's nice. It's colorful. It's accessible. That's was important for us. So there is an elevator, and there's everything you need if you're using a rollator or a cane or a wheelchair. This is really important. There is a parking spot available for people that need access and specific access for it in the street, and for those that prefer to use public transport, it's also a possibility. And this is the email to contact us if you have a question, if you need more feedback, more data, if you have any request, any question, if you need something, you need answer, you need help with anything, don't hesitate to send us an email here. We don't have I do we have a phone number? I no.
yes, we do.
Yeah.
We have it now.
Is
So
it
I'll
is
put
it
it.
is it put ready to go and to use?
Yeah, it's I put it in the chat and
Okay, I
also
should have
on the
added
screen.
on the
No, that's
slide.
fine. So there we are. This is the phone number you can use, but most communication is probably easiest by email. Then we we can agree also on a time to call you back. Depends on
Yeah,
what type of question it
we're
is.
not always available. We are super busy, so maybe email is easier. But if you feel
Mm.
better with the phone, you can phone call and let a message, and
Yes.
we'll call you back.
That's right. And I think with that, we're also getting towards the end of the recording of the webinar. So this, if there was any questions, now would, as before, be the moment to put those in the chat for those that had any questions. Maybe we have answered all the questions, Melanie. I don't know, but
I don't think so, but would be great. But
would be great, yeah. But I have to say, it's been a very, very good time talking about what we do, sharing it with everyone. And I can only hope you found it a bit informative, that you can share it around your own network with the family and with people that might have this need. It is a new service that is in Luxembourg not
you're
for very
exclusively the
long.
first one to see that. It's first
Exactly.
official communication about that. That's why also we love to hear feedback to get better on doing that.
Yes, we've taken the time to put this out here. We've been busy working behind the scenes and treating
Yeah.
people. So
In
that
the meantime, yeah, a lot of work.
a lot of work. Melanie, thank you very much for having taken the time to put the presentation together
I
and
did my best, thank you.
for being here together with me. You have far more experience in presenting webinars, but I have to say,
Ah, in
very nice.
neurofeedback, recoveriX not the same.
No, that's true. But then again, uh,
I've had
let's
so many
conclude.
ideas on things to speak about,
Yes.
but then the webinar will be 3 hours.
Oh, yes.
While
Always more
speaking,
to
I've had
say.
too many ideas.
Do we have a concluding slide? I think we do.
Yes. Oh, wrong
Yes,
side.
there it is.
Okay.
Yes. So for anyone that thinks I would love to hear this, but I couldn't quite catch it all, I'd prefer in a different language. So we'll do it again in roughly 2 weeks in French, and then at the beginning of the year, also in German on Op Lützeburgisch. So stay tuned for those webinars. We will send you the link, and the replay will be with you also shortly. So this is where we conclude for today. Thank you everyone for tuning in, and well,
Have a
see you
good day.
soon. Bye everyone.
Bye.